In the golden age of Hollywood, when rebellious actors rewrote the rules of stardom, one man stood apart from the crowd. Steve McQueen, the king of cool, was known for his unflinching dedication to authenticity, his magnetic screen presence, and his refusal to compromise his vision. But there's one story that Hollywood insiders whispered about for decades, a tale of artistic integrity that would define not just a career, but an entire generation's understanding of what it meant to be truly fearless on screen. It all came down to a single page 47, and the decision that would change everything. Steve McQueen wasn't born a star. He was forged by fire, shaped by the harsh realities of a troubled childhood that would later fuel his most authentic performances. Born Terrence Stephen McQueen in 1930, he emerged from the mean streets of Indianapolis with nothing but raw talent and an unshakable determination to live life on his own terms. By the 1960s, he had become the embodiment of American masculinity, the anti-hero who made rebellion look effortlessly cool. What set McQueen apart wasn't just his piercing blue eyes or his ability to make silence speak volumes. It was his obsessive commitment to truth in every role he took. While other actors of his era were content to follow directors' visions blindly, McQueen had an almost supernatural ability to sense when something felt false, when a scene lacked the authenticity that audiences craved. He would spend hours studying real police officers for Bullitt, real prisoners for The Great Escape, real racers for Le Mans. Every gesture, every glance, every moment on screen had to ring true, or McQueen simply wouldn't do it. This dedication to authenticity often put him at odds with studio executives, directors, and co-stars who couldn't understand why he would risk his career over what they saw as minor details. But McQueen knew something they didn't. Audiences could sense truth through the silver screen, and once you betrayed that trust, you could never get it back. His reputation for being difficult was really a testament to his artistic integrity, a quality that would be put to the ultimate test when he encountered that fateful page 47. Little did the world know. This unwavering commitment to authenticity would soon lead to one of the most talked about decisions in Hollywood history, a moment when the king of cool would have to choose between commercial success and artistic truth. The stage was set for a confrontation that would define not just McQueen's legacy, but the very soul of American cinema. In 1971, Hollywood was buzzing with excitement about what was being called the most ambitious action thriller of the decade. The project, codenamed Thunder Road, was the brainchild of visionary director Robert Mulligan and acclaimed screenwriter Sterling Silliphant, the same duo behind several critically acclaimed dramas. The script was a masterpiece of tension and character development, telling the story of a rogue cop who discovers a conspiracy that goes all the way to the highest levels of government. Studio executives at Paramount were calling it Bullitt meets the French Connection, and they had good reason to be excited. The script combined McQueen's trademark cool with heart-pounding action sequences that would push the boundaries of what was possible on screen. The character of Detective Jack Morrison was tailor-made for McQueen, a man of few words but intense conviction, someone who trusted his instincts above all else and wasn't afraid to take on a system that had betrayed the very people it was meant to protect. The supporting cast was shaping up to be legendary. Faye Dunaway was in talks to play Morrison's love interest, a crusading journalist who becomes his unlikely ally. Gene Hackman was being courted for the role of the corrupt police captain, while Robert Duvall was set to portray the mysterious federal agent whose true loyalties remain unclear until the film's explosive climax. The budget was massive by 1970s standards, over $8 million, and the studio was prepared to give McQueen unprecedented creative control. For weeks, McQueen had been poring over the script, making notes, suggesting changes, and working closely with Silliphant to refine the character of Morrison. Everything was falling into place perfectly. The locations were scouted, The crew was assembled, and the cameras were ready to roll. But then McQueen reached page 47, and everything changed. What he found there would force him to make a decision. That would haunt Hollywood for decades to come. Page 47 contained what the screenwriter believed would be the emotional centerpiece of the entire film, a scene so powerful and raw that it would cement Thunder Road as an instant classic. Set in a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the sequence showed Detective Morrison cornering the main villain, a corrupt politician played by veteran actor Edward G. Robinson in what would have been one of his final roles. But this wasn't just any confrontation scene. According to those who read the original script, page 47 depicted Morrison torturing the corrupt politician for information, using methods that were shockingly brutal for a supposed hero. The scene was written with meticulous detail, showing Morrison's descent into moral ambiguity as he justified increasingly violent tactics in pursuit of justice. The politician would eventually break, revealing the conspiracy, but not before the audience witnessed their hero cross lines that could never be uncrossed. Silliphant had crafted the scene as a meditation on the corrupting nature of power and the thin line between justice and vengeance. He believed it would showcase McQueen's dramatic range while making a profound statement about the moral compromises inherent in American law enforcement. The director, Mulligan, saw it as the film's crucial turning point, the moment when the audience would realize that their hero was perhaps no better than the villains he pursued. For the studio executives, page 47 represented everything they thought audiences wanted: gritty realism, moral complexity, and an unflinching look at the dark side of justice. They had seen the success of films like Dirty Harry and believed that audiences were ready for even more morally ambiguous heroes. But they had made one crucial miscalculation. They had underestimated Steve McQueen's understanding of what it truly meant to be heroic, and his unwillingness to compromise on the fundamental values that made his characters worth rooting for. Steve McQueen had always possessed an almost supernatural ability to understand his character's moral centers, but this gift came from a place of deep personal pain. His childhood had been marked by abandonment, abuse, and betrayal by the very adults who should have protected him. His mother, Julian, had left him with her parents when he was just 3 years old, and his subsequent years were filled with foster homes, reform schools, and the constant uncertainty of never knowing who he could trust. These experiences had given McQueen an acute sensitivity to authentic heroism versus manufactured machismo. He had seen enough real violence and cruelty in his youth to understand the difference between strength and brutality, between justice and revenge. When he read scripts, he wasn't just looking for exciting action, sequences, or memorable dialogue. He was searching for characters who embodied the kind of moral strength he wished he had encountered as a vulnerable child. This personal philosophy had guided every major decision of his career. In The Great Escape, he had insisted that his character, Captain Hiltz, maintain his humanity even under the most extreme circumstances. In Bullet, he had worked tirelessly to ensure that Detective Frank Bullitt remained a man of principle, someone who pursued justice through skill and determination rather than brutality and corruption. His characters were tough, but they were also fundamentally decent men who stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. When McQueen read page 47, something deep inside him recoiled. This wasn't just a script revision he was considering. It was a fundamental betrayal of everything his screen persona represented. His fans didn't just come to see him drive fast cars or deliver cool one-liners. They came to see a man who represented the possibility that integrity and strength could coexist, that heroism was still possible in an increasingly complex world. Page 47 threatened to destroy the carefully constructed trust, and McQueen knew it. The meeting took place on a sweltering July afternoon in 1971. in the air-conditioned luxury of Paramount Studios' executive boardroom. Present were Robert Evans, the legendary producer who had overseen The Godfather and Chinatown, director Robert Mulligan, screenwriter Sterling Siliphant, and of course, Steve McQueen himself. The tension in the room was palpable from the moment McQueen walked in, carrying the script marked with red ink and sticky notes. McQueen's opening words were characteristically direct. "We need to talk about page 47. The studio executives exchanged glances, expecting perhaps some minor dialogue concerns or suggestions for action choreography. What they got instead was a 20-minute dissertation on the moral responsibility of filmmakers and the sacred trust between actors and their audiences. McQueen spoke passionately about the young men in Vietnam who looked up to his characters, about the fathers who brought their sons to his movies, about the responsibility that came with being a cultural icon. Evans, known for his smooth-talking ability to handle difficult stars, tried to reassure McQueen that the scene was essential for the film's artistic integrity. He pointed to the success of The French Connection and argued that audiences were sophisticated enough to understand moral complexity. Mulligan chimed in with high